Hey, what's going on, everybody? Robert Marzullo here with Ram Studios, and I got another video for you today. I got a request to do to kind of explain pants and shirts, so kind of another wrinkles and drapery kind of thing, really. If you look at it, that kind of applies to everything, the same ideas. But what we'll do is we'll draw out kind of a shirt and pants scenario here. And first off, what I do, like anything else, I'll start with this kind of blue line, and I'm doing the shape of a torso here. It's always good to give yourself some good reference points, even when you're doing some garments over top of the shape. You got to think about the underlying shape beneath the garment to make it look more realistic. So pretty much what I'll do here is just use my mannequin style sketch here, define where the arms are going to go, maybe kind of hands in the pocket kind of thing like this. And I could almost just go off that, but what I'll do is I'll fill in a little bit more underlying structure here, just real quick, like that. Even excuse me, where the neck kind of comes in. Always keep in mind the neck actually comes down and connects in like this. It's a good rule of thumb to do when you're drawing your necks, because then it forces you to draw the trapezoid to come around like this. And I'm not going to get into too much of the anatomy. I'm just kind of, like I said, doing a little bit of underlying structure so that I know where to put the wrinkles and things. Okay, so when drawing wrinkles and drapery or whatever, now I'll leave that as my base structure, and I'll start another layer to go over top of this. So the main thing to keep in mind is that gravity works on this like anything else. So what's going to happen is on the points where it hits the very top of the body here, it's going to smooth out like that, maybe depending on the material too. But we'll just keep this like a traditional shirt material, cotton or something. So what happens is by the gravity pulling it, it'll hit there, and then it'll kind of start to create areas where the material pulls and rotates around, like it's flowing around the structure, in this case the arm. And you got to kind of think about that, because like say underneath the armpit here, you're going to get these pulls and wrinkles up and around, maybe from the arm twisting and coming in front of the where the material's bunching up here. So you'd come say down like this, and then once it comes to where that other wrinkle is, it'd probably bow out and around it like that. And something I want to talk about to try to explain this to you, make it a little bit easier, is you want to always look for shapes. If you watch some of my videos, you'll hear me say that over and over again, generally, because what happens is if you can start picking apart the shapes that you're seeing in these designs and these drawings, that's what is going to stick with you. And then when you go to redraw it, that's what's going to pop up in your mind and allow you to draw it better. You got to figure when you're not looking at reference, you're going to tend to stylize this stuff unless you just draw realism all the time, and then you'll probably get a very firm grasp on realistic drawing of whatever it is you're drawing. But if you're drawing from your mind's eye over and over again, you're just basically going to pick up um, bits and pieces of it, and you're going to tend to stylize it. So, and for what I do with comic illustration, that's perfect. That's what I do anyways. So, but I have to remember some key things. And the shape that I always see the most in wrinkles and drapery or clothing is this. I'll draw it off to the side here. One real popular one is this right here. Okay, and you can pretty much get away with a lot of wrinkle drawings just by doing that, and then you shade inside here, inside here, depending on your light source. But I'm just giving you a quick example of this pattern, and you'll notice if you look down into your clothes, into your shirts, you're going to see this pattern show up every now and then. Here you're going to see it on this design. It's over here where the bunches and the arm, upper arm to forearm section where it bunches up, and there's that little back and forth S pattern. I guess it's a little. If you look right there, that's an S. So you want to keep in mind stuff like that. The other is just your gravitational pull or pinching of certain areas, like here, here, and as I keep drawing this, I'll see if I can find more. Lastly, the other one that's real important is this bend that it does on the very outside of the shirt, or material. And what happens is that's just kind of the bunching of the material. Then it rolls over. It usually creates another little soft curve right there. So, sometimes more dramatic than that, but like that. And then you just kind of picture, say the material's pinching right here, that it would roll into those a bit. And then maybe another little version of that half S or whatever, part of the S right there. And the other thing to look at when you're doing this is always this kind of repetitive pattern of light, dark, light, dark. So say your light source is on a downward angle here. What's going to happen is, you're going to get, like, say, some bunched up shadowing here. Just kind of draw that in. And then it's going to go dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, and always bounce back and forth. That's how you convey the look of depth with your drawings, is repeating that pattern of light and dark. So, and then maybe some bounce light, or rim lighting, like it's called sometimes. So basically, if you're getting a bunch of shadows down here, I'll kind of make an example of that. So dark, light, dark. And I'm just trying to make these forms start popping out. And just keep an eye on it. If they don't look natural, then I erase it and retry it. And if I can't get it right, then I go to reference. Stuff like that. So don't, especially with something like clothing, definitely don't feel bad about looking at reference and then from there expounding upon it and making your own stylized version. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how all the good artists do it. Don't feel bad. That's how you get better. So nobody just goes, oh, watch this just right out of my head and it's perfect. No, it's that stylized look that they came up with. That's from looking at reference from time and time again, and then stylizing it and making their own extrapolation from that. So don't feel like that's cheating at all. So what I'm trying to do here is show a little bit of rim lighting or bounce light at the bottom of the shirt, which would be here. You're always going to get a little bit of bounce light. Light kind of does that. So even if it's a room with a single light source, it could have a reflective property below, and it could still create a bounce light. So you learn a little bit more about that when you study like 3D and stuff like that. So you just want to keep in mind how light reacts and how it works on objects and things. So and you can kind of go crazy with the wrinkles too if you want. I try to not go too nuts with them, because then it tends to look more incorrect. So I'll probably stop right there. So you can just kind of pick apart those shapes. And I'm not saying that's a perfect arm. There's definitely a little bit of funkiness right here. But I'll let that pass so I can get more of the shirt filled in and explain more of some of these shapes or processes. So even up here, now, alright, here's another good thing to keep in mind. Alright, so here we have the sternum, the chest cavity, whatever. So basically what you want to keep in mind is that now the point of drape or whatever, drapery, is going to occur off the front of the chest right here. So what happens is you got to keep in mind that this area up here is going to be more smooth, and down here below the chest is where you're going to get some areas of influence, I guess. So you're going to get a little bit of kind of pull and gravity, gravity doing its magic like that. So keeping that in mind, and then now that the fact that this area up here is going to get the most light, and then you're going to get more shadows below the arm here. So we'll start filling some of that in. A little bit of wrinkles under the arm there. And a good thing to study when you're doing stuff like this is when you do look at your reference, look at different types of materials and the way they react. You'll see the same shapes, but you'll see them react very differently against the structure they're on. Obviously leather is going to be a lot more rigid than a silk, things like that. So I'm just trying to find the where the wrinkles would go and the shapes in there. Now see that right there would be more congruent with a leather, not a softer material like this. So keep that in mind. So if this was a more rigid material, I could get away with a shadow like this, and it would make it look like the material is coming up and around like that and staying in that shape more. But since this is more of a t-shirt, probably a cotton, something like that, it's not going to do that so much. So keep that in mind too. Okay. Yeah, see, and I'm not really liking these shapes in here too much. I'm wondering if maybe if I should have brought them up and inward this way. But for speed's sake, so I can get on to doing the pants too in this same video, I'll go ahead and just shadow that in. I'll hide it with some shading. No one will ever see it under all this cool shading. That I made a horrible mistake. Yeah, something like that. I mean, it's not perfect, but you get the gist of it. So, alright, now the other thing to keep in mind is up here, say you get a couple little wrinkles like this on the shoulder. Usually, I think it occurs usually on the shoulders right there. You just kind of pull these lines from those wrinkles, in the direction that it might go around the shoulder, something like that. And then up here to the collar. Collars are real nice and easy, at least for me. You just kind of picture a half cylinder like that. The collar kind of coming down to a point like this, and then rolling around. Sometimes they have this little curve right there. And then you always want to draw the little bit of the collar that goes around the neck. Gives you just a tad more depth, like that. Excuse me. And never draw this line that comes down as a straight line. Should have a little bit of bends to it, like that. Cover it up with a tie when you can. And then to show depth, you just do a couple little shadows where the material looks like it's bowing away from the other piece. Real simple. And then you just kind of do these little puckers, kind of like stress points from where the buttons are pulling on the material. You can get in there and shade a little bit of that if you want to, get overly detailed with your design, like that. See, and then here, just to make that chest round out a little bit more, I'm going to round this line back, bring it in this way. See how that works, and maybe some shading across here. Yeah, I like that a little better, even though that's still not perfect, but now it gives you more reason why this would be more in shadow. And just repeat that over here. Okay, so there's that. Now we'll get over to this side again. Those little puckers or wrinkles, the area where it would smooth out over the shoulder. That's the other thing you want to keep in mind, not to get overly. I see a lot of guys will do like this. They'll want to start drawing in the anatomy of the arm as they're doing the wrinkles. Right? And this is real comic booky, so I'll do this real fast to show you. And some people like this. You might even like this style. The only thing I don't like about it is it really isn't realistic. You're not gonna see, unless this guy's wearing a really tight dress shirt for whatever reason. And actually, I can see I made the upper arm way too shy there. The elbow should be down here more, actually a little lower. But yeah, so but that's just not, to me this one looks a lot more realistic than this over here. This looks a lot more comic book on the other side. You want to just get in the habit of not. I mean, depending on the style you're after, you can do whatever you want, but I'm just saying for what I'm after and what I'm trying to do, I want a little bit of animated look in there, but I want it to also look like I know how to draw. I don't like the stuff that's just overly simplistic, and it just looks like they don't, like they never focused on life drawing or anything of the sort. So, tomato, tomato, do whatever you want. But again, those little reverse shapes like that, just kind of pick those apart and throw those in there. Uh, and those can be elongated and pulled down through here too. See that? So I don't know about that one, but that's, you know, again, it's seeing those negative shapes that you can break the stuff down with. they're in everything that you draw. So I think that's one of the things that um, gets you to be a better artist is when you start realizing those shapes and you can pick apart something and break it down and redraw it a lot faster because you see those. So again, keeping in mind where the light source is, the downward light, and a little bit of shadowing under here. Make it look like that basically this arm is a little bit more forward, this one's a little more back. Something I like to do. I don't like to do try to stay away from doing everything entirely symmetrical, because it just if everything looks mirrored in your artwork, it's going to look very boring and a little bit too structured and um, not as organic. So you want to make sure that nothing is entirely symmetrical, that there's always a little bit of difference from side to side, unless of course you're drawing some kind of mechanical type object or structure. Then it can be perfectly symmetrical, but other than that, you're never going to see that with anything organic or uh, even in faces and bodies. It's just not the way it works. So and all I really do here is just kind of keep scribbling some stuff in, stop, look at it, see if it's working, see if it's not, just keep going with it. That's why you want to do a lot of your you're messing around and sketching to get all the stuff worked out, and then once you're in your mind thinking, this looks pretty good, I can go with this, that's when you go to your inks and you just like I've explained in other videos, I just convert this to a blue line again, come back over it with some inks, and kind of solidify the things that I think we're looking okay. Alright, so now what I'll do is shrink this down just a little bit. Actually grab both layers, shrink them down, and we'll do a little bit into the pantalones. That way, it gives you a better idea of how to do both. Pants are just even a little bit easier, I think. They just seem to stay more. It's really the same concept, but same idea as all these other shapes, and gravity working against the material, stuff like that. Always do kind of one leg where it looks like it's in front of the other a little bit. Again, stress wrinkles. And I probably should have did this first sketch portion for the shape on the blue line, but this is fine. This leg's way too big. Okay, so there's our basic initial shape, but then again, using this S-curve effect, and maybe more of an angle with the pant legs or something. So what I picture is that it's, the material's pulling around the leg here, it's being pulled from the crotchal region, like so, and then, just some of the little shapes there that you see. Kind of back and forth, and you got to play with these sometimes, just throw them in and see if it works. And then based on that, see how this material gets closer to the edge here? Well, this isn't going to be an entirely straight line now, so you bring that down and around, and you start kind of picturing with that same S-curve shape, where it comes to the end, it's going to create a little bit of a bow there, or a bend. So just kind of do that. Usually going to a little bit more dramatic bunching at the knees. Same thing on this side, it's no longer a straight line. Like that. So I guess that's another little pattern. I think I got that leg a little long, but another pattern to keep in mind with this stuff is that there's always more bunching at the areas that change in the body. So, which, that's pretty much common sense, but let's just point out the obvious while we're at it. There's that. You start filling in some of the details, the pocket lines, belt loops. That. Through here, you're going to get a bunch of like side wrinkles right through here. If he's got his hands in his pockets, you're going to see, the material kind of bulk up right there. Again, another shadow through here, like so. And if this leg is further back, then you're going to get a larger shadow on the inside leg here, I would imagine. If you're trying to make this leg push forward, that's how you do it. And then by the time it got down here to the knee bend, it would be shadowed again to show that this leg is further back. And actually, you can see one of the reasons it doesn't look that way. This leg would actually appear to curve back the other direction. So, even though I wasn't trying to explain a walking motion here or whatever, or a change in design that way, but but it still applies because, alright, say these wrinkles bunch up at the knee like we talked about, and this leg looks like it appears to be recessing into space like that. Another way that's going to happen is knowing where these wrinkles go, and then shading over top of that, because this leg would have to be shaded back to make it look like it's recessing into space, or it would help that look dimensional that way. But you'll need to know how to bring some of these wrinkles into that shading. Savvy? Alright, so there's that. Yeah, it's kind of an ugly leg, but gets the point across. Alright, now this material, the shadow needs to be moved. You see, I just keep everything very scribbly because I don't know where this is going at this point. And sometimes I have to do the, occasional couple redraws to get it right. So, but back to the actual wrinkles, since that's what we're talking about here. Again, that light dark effect, right there, there. You just kind of keep retracing that pattern. Excuse me. I'm just kind of feeling this out and seeing where everything should go. I'd probably do a redraw on this, but the other thing that allows me to move forward when I do stuff like this, if I'm seeing stuff I don't like, is knowing that I'm the inker. I'm going to come back and ink over this anyways. So then I'll just turn around and you know bring some of this out with my inks and try to fix some of the things that I'm seeing that I don't really care for in that process. And if worse comes to worse, pull out some reference. Yeah, I mean, not a strong piece, but hopefully it conveys the information that I'm trying to explain to you when you're doing these. So some things to keep in mind are picture your underlying shape, because that's how the wrinkles are going to affect affect the material over top of that shape. So you gotta picture that underlying shape beneath. Uh, Keep trying to implement those little S curves and breaks in the material. And it kind of does this. And when the more wrinkles, the stronger area of impact or influence, the more you're going to see those. And keep in mind with that light dark effect that you're going to do on everything to bring your shapes out. And just be prepared to scribble and practice. And I'll be honest, I don't draw enough of the wrinkles and drapery to be masterful at it. I probably should do it more and more, which I'll probably recommit myself to doing that, because I'm even finding myself like right now, like, all right, where does this next shape go? Am I doing too much of it? So that tells me that I need to practice even more. I get a little bit too much in habit of drawing the comic book stuff where they're all wearing shiny spandex, and guess what? Shiny spandex is pretty easy to draw. I'll show you. The same leg in a shiny spandex material. You get to draw the muscles, maybe a tiny bit of wrinkles in the corners. Back to muscle.